I always believed that family should be the place where you feel safest. That was why, when my husband, Tom, suggested taking a family cruise with my sister, Emily, I barely hesitated. After all, Emily had been struggling since her breakup, and a week at sea could be the healing she needed. What I didn't see coming was how far that healing would go, and who exactly she would choose to heal with. As the cruise ship pulled away from the dock, its horns echoing through the harbor, I felt a strange wave of dread. It was the kind of chill that clings to your spine, even on a sunny day. Tom stood by my side, a confident grin on his face, while Emily hovered just a few steps behind, hugging her sweater a bit too tightly. I tried to shake off the unease, convincing myself I was just being overprotective. After all, wasn't this supposed to be a chance for all of us to reconnect? The ocean stretched wide and blue before us, as if inviting us to leave our worries on the shore. On our first evening, I saw them together at the buffet line, laughing, whispering, sharing that look you usually see between lovers, not family. I told myself I was imagining things, that they were simply bonding over old memories. But something deep in my gut refused to let go of the suspicion. Every night, Tom and Emily seemed closer. They played cards on the upper deck, swapped inside jokes, and even took long walks along the rails after dinner, claiming they were getting fresh air. I tried to join them once, but Tom barely acknowledged me, acting like I was a shadow in my own marriage. It hurt in ways I cannot even describe. I had given Tom everything, my love, my loyalty, my trust. And here he was, letting my own sister slide in between us, both of them pretending nothing was wrong. The more I watched, the clearer it became, this wasn't a harmless family trip. It was a stolen paradise for two people who thought I was too blind to see. The moment that broke me happened on the fourth night. We were at a sunset dinner on the ship's terrace, the sky bleeding orange and purple. Tom reached over and tucked Emily's hair behind her ear, the same gesture he used to do to me, back when he still cared. My heart nearly stopped. That small, intimate move told me everything. I felt my hands shaking as I excused myself from the table. I ran to our cabin, locked the door, and tried to breathe. My sister and my husband. I had to face it, the two people I loved most were betraying me together. Some of you might understand how that feels, to be the last to know, even when all the signs are screaming at you. If you've ever experienced something similar, you're not alone. Please, stick around and join me in this journey. Maybe share this story if it resonates with you, so others know they aren't alone either. And don't forget to subscribe, because you won't believe what happened next. As the ship kept moving through the dark water, I made myself a promise, I would find the truth. And when I did, I would make them feel what I felt. That night, for the first time in a long while, I allowed anger to burn in my chest. It was oddly comforting, like a spark waiting to turn into a wildfire. I would watch them, I would listen, and when the moment was right, I would make my move. They had no idea I was already planning a way to turn their little vacation into a nightmare they would never forget. I couldn't sleep that night. The ocean seemed to rock me in a cruel lullaby, whispering its secrets while my mind replayed every suspicious glance and hidden touch between Tom and Emily. I lay awake in our cabin, staring at the ceiling, feeling my own heart hammer against my ribs like it wanted to break free and escape. When Tom came back to the room around midnight, he smelled of cheap perfume, one I didn't wear. I forced myself to pretend I was asleep. I listened to him quietly undress, climb into the bed, and turn away from me as if he couldn't stand the thought of touching me. The next morning, I got up early, before either of them. I slipped out of our cabin and walked the decks, breathing in the salty air. I needed a plan. If I confronted them too soon, they would just deny it, twist it, gaslight me like I was the one imagining things. But if I waited, if I watched, I could collect every piece of proof I needed, and then burn them with the truth in front of everyone. Breakfast was awkward. Tom sat across from me, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. Emily showed up late, hair still damp from a morning shower, and tried to sit next to Tom until I shot her a look so sharp she changed her mind. "Sleep okay?" she asked me, her voice a little too sugary. I smiled thinly. "Perfectly," I lied. Their eyes locked across the table. A silent message passed between them, so quick I almost missed it. But I saw it. That day, I decided to follow them. Cruise ships are tricky places, too big to control, yet too small to hide in. They thought I would stay in the spa all afternoon, but I trailed them to the piano bar instead. I watched from the doorway, careful not to be seen, as Tom stroked Emily's hand under the table. I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag her out by her hair and spit every hateful word I could think of right into her face. But I didn't. I couldn't. If I exposed them now, they'd just spin the story, claim it was an innocent mistake. No, I needed more. Later that evening, there was a karaoke night on the upper deck. I went along, pretending to be in a party mood, and forced Tom to sing a silly duet with me, just to watch him squirm. Emily looked jealous, and I felt a rush of dark satisfaction. So this is how she felt stealing my husband, like a prize hunter. I stepped aside after the song, letting the fake smile drop from my face. In the shadows, I recorded them with my phone while they whispered near the railing, thinking no one was paying attention. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught one word, clear as a knife. Tonight. That was enough to freeze the blood in my veins. Tonight. Tonight they planned something. Maybe a secret meeting in her cabin. Maybe worse. I went back to my room, chest tight with rage and humiliation. I replayed the clip over and over, zooming in on Tom's face, the way he smiled at her, a smile he hadn't given me in months. I wanted revenge. But I also wanted justice. If you've ever been betrayed like this, you know that weird sense of duty that comes over you, to show everyone who they really are. To break the mask. I thought of our families back home, our parents who trusted them both, and how devastated they'd be. Part of me ached at the thought of destroying everything in public, but another part, the stronger part, refused to be their silent victim. Maybe you've felt that, too. Maybe you've been the one left behind while people you loved laughed at your pain. If so, keep watching. Share this with someone who needs to know they aren't alone. And please, subscribe so you don't miss how I decided to strike back, because the next chapter is where my plan really takes shape. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled, calmly, and gathered my courage like armor. If they wanted to play games, I would become their worst nightmare. As the ship rocked gently on the midnight sea, I lay in bed, eyes open, already plotting how to trap them in their own lies. Emily and Tom had no clue I was done playing the good wife. They had no clue how far I would go to watch them drown in their own betrayal. The next morning, I woke up with a plan sharper than any knife. If Tom and Emily wanted to play lovers on a ship built for families, then I would give them an audience they'd never forget. I was done being quiet. I was done letting them humiliate me behind closed doors. After breakfast, I made sure to smile at them, pretending I was none the wiser. Tom was relaxed, even cracking jokes. Emily tried to act normal, but I could see the guilt flicker behind her eyes whenever I looked directly at her. That gave me hope. If there was still guilt, there was still a way to break them, to make them squirm. The cruise had planned a big gala night for the next evening, where passengers would dress up and take photos together. That was my moment. I would expose them in front of everyone, no place to hide, no way to lie. But first, I needed more proof. So I decided to test them. That afternoon, I told Tom I wasn't feeling well and wanted to rest in the cabin alone. He tried a weak protest, which I saw right through, then left with Emily, claiming they'd get some sun by the pool. I waited a few minutes, then quietly followed. They didn't go to the pool. They went straight to Emily's room. I pressed my ear to the door, heart hammering, and heard them talking in low, hushed voices. Words like "when she finds out" and "I don't care" burned into my brain. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door, sweet as sugar. "Emily? Tom? Can we talk?" There was a scuffle inside. Whispering. The sound of hurried steps. When Emily opened the door, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "Hey," she stammered. I thought you were resting. I smiled. Changed my mind. They tried to hide it, but the tension in that room was thick enough to cut with a butter knife. I sat on Emily's bed, pretending to be a clueless sister, while they squirmed. I asked them silly questions about the pool, about dinner, about the ship's schedule. Anything to watch them sweat. That night, I couldn't stop replaying that moment, the terror on their faces when I knocked. It gave me strength. If you've ever been cheated on, you'll understand that hunger for truth, even if it hurts more than the lie. You want to see them panic. You want them to feel an ounce of the confusion and betrayal that's poisoning your mind. That night, I wrote down every detail in my phone, the times they were together, the looks, the gestures, the words. I even saved screenshots of Tom's messages, which I'd quietly forwarded to my own email days before. I was building a case, one they couldn't escape. I barely slept. Instead, I lay awake planning how to set the stage for tomorrow's gala. The ship's grand ballroom was a perfect arena, music, fancy dresses, people smiling and taking pictures, all blissfully unaware of the ticking bomb I was about to drop. I would stand there in my best dress, like a queen before war, and tear the curtain off their perfect lie. I imagined the shock on their faces, the whispers, the shame. The entire cruise would see them for what they really were. If you're still here with me, you must know how impossible it is to live with a secret like this. Maybe you've held back your own truth, hoping it would go away. Let me tell you, it never goes away. It eats you alive until you do something about it. So please, stay with me. Subscribe if you want to hear how I flipped their fantasy upside down, because what I did next was beyond even my wildest dreams. By the time the ship's clocks chimed midnight, I had every detail of my revenge ready. I even rehearsed the speech I would give, calm, powerful, undeniable. They would never again doubt who I was or what I was capable of. Tomorrow, at that gala, I would stop being the quiet wife, the naive sister. I would become something else entirely, the woman who took her power back. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would save them once I stepped on that stage. The day of the gala felt like the calm before a hurricane. I watched the crew stringing fairy lights across the ceiling of the ballroom, setting up sparkling champagne towers, and arranging white linen tables covered with flowers. People moved around me, laughing and taking selfies, oblivious to the storm I was about to bring. I took my time getting ready. My hands trembled while applying my makeup, but I forced myself to stay steady. Tonight, I would not be the heartbroken wife. I would not be the betrayed sister. Tonight, I was the judge and the jury, and my sentence would be final. Tom came to our cabin while I was pinning up my hair. He looked me over with a faint smile. "You look beautiful," he said, as if he actually meant it. I turned to face him, steady. "Thank you," I replied. I almost laughed at the irony. The man who ripped my life apart was still trying to play husband, still trying to hold his perfect cover. We walked down together to the gala. Emily was already there, wearing a shimmering dress that clung to her in all the wrong ways. When our eyes met, I saw a flicker of fear. She knew something was coming. Music filled the room, couples danced, cameras flashed. I felt as if the ship itself was holding its breath for what I was about to do. As the night went on, I waited for the perfect moment. Dessert had just been served, and people were relaxed, laughing, a bit tipsy. I stood, picked up my glass, and tapped it gently with a spoon. The delicate chime cut through the music, turning heads. "May I have everyone's attention?" I began, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. People quieted down. Tom froze. Emily went pale. "I want to thank you all for joining this amazing cruise," I continued, smiling as if nothing was wrong. "It has truly been unforgettable." I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting everyone lean in. Then I dropped the bomb. "But there's something even more unforgettable that happened on this ship," I said, voice tightening just enough to let my pain slip through. "My husband and my sister decided to celebrate their own, private romance. Right here. Under all of our noses." Gasps. Disbelief. People glanced from me to Tom to Emily, trying to make sense of what they'd just heard. Emily stammered, "That's not true." "Oh, it's true," I cut her off sharply, taking out my phone. "Would you all like to see the evidence?" I held up the video I had recorded the night before, the one of Tom and Emily whispering by the railing, hands touching, sharing words no married man should say to his wife's sister. A hush fell over the ballroom. I could hear nothing but the sound of my own breathing. Tom tried to grab my arm. "Stop this," he hissed. I pulled away, ice cold. "Why? You weren't worried about me when you were sharing my bed and hers." Someone in the crowd actually clapped, a single, brave soul who couldn't hold back their outrage. That was all it took. Whispers turned into a murmur, and then voices rose, people pointing, shaking their heads in disgust. Emily looked like she might faint. Tom looked like he wanted to murder me, but I didn't care anymore. My truth was out, and it was glorious. If you've ever dreamed of taking your power back from someone who betrayed you, trust me, there is no moment like that first breath of freedom. It felt like sunlight after a hurricane, like finally remembering who you really are. I turned to the crowd, steady, strong. "I will no longer be the woman who is lied to," I declared. "I will no longer be the woman who is used." Tom sputtered, "Where are you going to go?" I smiled. "Wherever I want," I told him. "And you, both of you, can figure out your own way home." People stared in shock, but no one stopped me as I set my glass down, lifted my chin, and walked straight out of the ballroom. The music was still playing, eerily cheerful, behind me. As I left, I felt free, for the first time in years. I felt powerful. If you're still following this, thank you. Share my story if you know someone who needs courage, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss how I finally closed this chapter once and for all, because the ending was even sweeter than I expected. I had one last move to make, and I promised myself it would be unforgettable. The next morning, the ship docked at our final port, a sun-drenched island framed by turquoise waves and white sands. People bustled around excitedly, pulling suitcases and snapping photos, eager to explore. I stood on the deck, breathing in the ocean air, letting it wash away the chaos of the night before. My mind was calm, sharper than ever. I had exposed them. I had survived their lies. But there was one last piece of revenge left, one they'd never see coming. Tom found me near the railings, looking out at the shore. He looked exhausted, like a man who had aged overnight. Emily stood behind him, pale, avoiding my eyes. "We should talk," he said. I turned to face them, steady and cold. "About what?" I asked. "About how you both destroyed everything I thought was real?" Emily started to cry, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No warmth. Just a hollow calm. "I'm sorry," she tried to say, but the words were empty, meaningless. "Save it," I cut her off. "You two made your choices. Now you can live with them." I pointed to their luggage, which sat neatly packed beside them. "I already checked you out of your cabin," I told them. "The ship leaves in an hour. You won't be on it." Tom's eyes went wide. "What do you mean?" I gave them a smile so cold it could have frozen fire. "You're staying here. You'll have to figure out how to get home on your own." Emily's mouth dropped open. "But we don't have money for that." "Not my problem," I replied, my voice steady. "You had no problem taking what was mine, so now you can figure out how to survive without me." They stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time. Not as the quiet wife, not as the dependable sister, but as someone who had taken back her power, someone they could never break again. Tom tried to grab my arm. "You can't do this." I pulled away easily. "Watch me." It was poetic, really. They had conspired behind my back on this floating palace, and now I would leave them stranded, alone, with nothing but their shame. The ship's horn blared, calling passengers back. I turned my back on them, my heart pounding with an adrenaline I'd never felt before. As I walked up the gangway, I felt a rush of freedom that made my whole body lighter. The other passengers watched, confused, but no one stopped me. No one knew my story, only that I looked stronger than ever, and that was enough. If you've ever wanted to take back your voice, let this be your sign. No one can steal your worth unless you let them. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to save the people who tried to drown you. I boarded the ship alone, feeling the sun on my skin, the salt in my hair, and a future finally opening ahead of me. My cabin felt bigger without Tom's presence, calmer, like it had been waiting for me to reclaim it. I sat down at the little writing desk by the window, watching the island get smaller as the ship pulled away. I wondered how they would cope, where they would go, how they'd explain what happened to their friends and family. The thought didn't bother me. It even made me smile. I was free. And that was all that mattered. So if you followed me through this entire journey, I want to thank you. You are stronger than you think. Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth, and never stay silent when you've been betrayed. Share this story if it might help someone you know find their voice, and feel free to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of my life, because after this, I'm ready to start a new story entirely, one that belongs only to me. I stood by the window as the ship sailed toward a new horizon, breathing easier than I had in years. There was a world waiting for me beyond betrayal, a world where I could heal and dream again. And that, I promised myself, was exactly where I was headed.